First off, so far, real quick, has everybody, how many of you have already met with one of our prosperity coaches so far this weekend? That's pretty good. All right. If you haven't, you definitely want to do it because it's just part of what you paid for. You're gonna get time to have them go through the profile. We call your prosperity profile. This is a snapshot of where you are now. We do ask questions of where do you want to go, but the best way to get the help that you need is to go through this and talk about it and see if there's a plan that can be developed for you. Because everybody comes here with different backgrounds, experiences, field divisions, your circumstances are different. But anybody could move forward. I mean, there's examples of people up here right now, I can tell you, that started off in similar circumstances to me. That's why I have them here. I knew that they came through adversity, came from different industries, do invest, and also have a license. Okay? So far, so good? Sound like we picked the right people? Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. How about if we start with Susan, and we'll go from there. And I'll kind of hang out here a little bit, and I might step out in a few minutes just to take a break.
Why don't you go ahead and take a break?
Okay.
You guys, how did Gary do for you this morning? You guys did fine. Well, I mean, it's not that we don't want you in the room. I know you need a break, so darn it. So again, remember this is Travis, Kevin, David, Dennis, and then of course I'm Susan. So what we want to do is we want to answer your questions. Any questions that you have. When you come here to these weekends, you know, a lot of times I remember what it was like to sit in your seat. A lot of times you're like, oh, I don't really want to sound stupid if I ask that question or whatever. Hey, this is your time. Wouldn't you rather make a mistake in here than to make it out there? Yeah. So this is your time. So anything that's just bugging you, anything that's questioning or burdening you, or anything that you'd like to share that you feel like, then we do need to be very careful about not rambling on and on and on, because we do have a time, and you know, obviously we want to get a lot of value out of this time. So keep your questions as short as possible, and then of course we'll do the same up here. Ready?
Ready.
Say ready.
Ready.
Fantastic. Okay, any questions to get started? We'll start with Daryl.
And to your class executive, so
Thank you.
Since we're here today, I mean, during this week, I know you said we could talk to you.
Yes.
But after today, can we have to hire you to continue talking to you?
What do you think?
Because I would like to continue talking to you. I just need to know, right? Because I want to be prepared.
When you sit down with us, we're going to actually give a plan for you and make a plan up for you. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. How's that?
There you go.
So I know a little about you, a little about probably the most, like, I don't really know much about them. You just give a pretty summary of who you are, what you guys kind of do.
Right. I don't think you were here for the first introduction.
Yeah.
Day one. Yeah,
Oh,
so.
Okay, basically,
We did a little short quickie.
Yeah, you want to do that real quick?
Let's
Let's
go
start
down the
with
line.
Travis on the other end.
Sure.
Yeah, so my background's restaurant industry. I grew up in the restaurant industry. My wife, she became pregnant somehow. I don't know how, but because I was working 80 hours a week. But yeah, so once we had our first kid, I decided I didn't want to raise my kids in that industry, and I got into real estate. I started through the mortgage industry, and it was during a time. This was back in 2000. And by 2004, all of my buddies were investing in real estate, and I didn't know anything about it. I knew how to do mortgages because that's what I learned, and I was bartending at night. I was trying to figure it all out, right? But by 2004, I bought my first rental property, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So that's kind of my background, was restaurant industry, and then I got out of it and started investing. So it's been 14 years now. So.
Awesome. So my background is basically first 25 years of my career was construction, remodeling, building spec houses, commercial landscape construction in Vegas. I'm a native of Vegas. And as I like to say, back in 06, 07, when the market was going crazy, if you had a pulse, you could sign on dotted line, buy a house, right? Well, my circle of influence was guys, all business owners who were out at the time building large 7 to 12, 15,000 square foot spec houses and making a ton of money from about 02 through, until the crash happened. So they're all, well, Kevin, you got to jump in the game. You know, you gotta build a house. And, okay, I can build a house, no problem. Yeah, I built my first house that I raised my kids in. So this is kind of a tragic story. So I built my first spec house, was a 7,800 square foot Tuscan villa, amazing home. Unfortunately, I finished it April of '08. So I missed it by literally months. The house was started out on the market at 2.9. I eventually dropped it down to 2.3, hoping to basically break even, maybe make 100 grand, right? Because I was into that thing. So didn't happen, leased it out, 10 months. I mean, the mortgage payment on that thing was $10K a month. So as you can understand, how long are you gonna hang on to a second mortgage payment of $10K a month, right? So I leased it out, that didn't work. Long story short, lost the house, lost a ton of money. So I look back now as I was playing investor. I had no clue what I was doing. Did I know how to build a house from the ground up? No problem. It's like tying my shoe. I could build anything. But I was playing investor. So it's real. So I learned the lesson the hard way. Don't play the game unless you know the rules. And that's what I always teach. You know, like I say, since we're little kids and you learn how to play Monopoly or checkers, you can't win if you don't know the rules. I didn't know the rules of the game of investing. You know, I should have done my homework, more due diligence, but I didn't. Now, my dad taught me when I was really young, don't cry over spilled milk. So I didn't beat myself up about losing a ton of money, large six figures, because I felt, for me personally, I took it as I was a victim of circumstance, as the rest of the country was. You know, if the country prospered and I lost an investment like that, that was my fault, right? So I never beat myself up about it. So you guys are here to learn, right? So you can play this game correctly and take advantage of a mentor or skills that Gary can teach you guys so you don't make a mistake like I did, because it was a very expensive mistake. So since then, now I've learned how to think and act different with my time and my money, take advantage of mentors and resources that are out there, because there's so many that, you know, you got to be careful who you choose from, right? We've all maybe been to a seminar or two or listened to this person or that person. Are they the real expert? So you've got an individual here that has a track record that clearly he's the expert, you know what I mean? We're here to teach you things that you don't know, that's all. Because what you don't know can hurt you. So just be careful there. So again, that's why just keep asking, just keep asking. And we're here to put you in the best possible position that we can, if you're ready, if you're ready. So.
Hi everyone, you know a little bit about me. I didn't talk as much about my investment background. I started investing after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in 2000. Changed my life. I thought Robert Kiyosaki was the man. Still think he's the man. Back then I was enamored. Went out, of course, bought my first multifamily property right after reading the book with friends, and didn't know all the rules. But played it safe. So it was a buy and hold investment. And one of the things that we like to say in real estate is if you make a mistake, just wait, right? So that's what I ended up doing. And that property broke even for, I would say, about 7 years. Then it started cash flowing. After about 8 years, it was in a good area, it wasn't a bad area, northern New Jersey, Bloomfield. That was my first one. Moved from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, started buying duplexes. I had multiple duplexes. Those weren't in such a good area, so I learned all about, you know, drugs and people dying outside your house and things that you don't want to do, and learned that why you don't just look at the numbers. I'm an engineer, so I looked at the numbers like, oh my goodness, these numbers are amazing. Then I learned why, and how much struggle you have to put into in order to get those numbers, and what numbers are often not worth it. So I cut my teeth in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and then recently I have liquidated all of my assets. I got up to, I had an 8-unit with some partners, also in Pennsylvania, a few duplexes and an 8-unit, liquidated everything, and am in the process of converting and investing down in Georgia, where I live now. Started my first new construction, so I'm catching up to this guy over here, which I mentioned to you earlier, as well as working with my father, who's, I think he's just stepped out, but working on some of his assets and some of the things that he would like to do from an investing standpoint going forward, in addition to running my real estate business and expanding my own investment portfolio.
Let's give him a 2 clap. Very good. Let's give them all a 2 clap. Thank you. Again, my name is Dennis. I come from a very, very, very humble beginnings. And I always say I never really wanted to be wealthy. I just wanted to be comfortable. Soon as I found out to be comfortable, I need to be wealthy. That's how I got involved in investing. I soon found out a job wasn't going to do it for me. So back in the 80s, I got my real estate license, ended up taking a Series 6, 63 license. I've got, what else license? I got so many licenses. Mortgage class, you name it. I've taken just about every advanced real estate and stock investment course out there. I'm a founding member of a funding company. I do real estate. I've done multi-unit, single families, cash flow. So I'm kind of well-versed in just about every area. I always like to say, it's not about me and what I've done. I'm here to help you guys throughout the weekend. That's why we're here. That's why we're sitting down with you. So I'm looking forward to talking to each and every one of you. If you haven't talked to me or the team yet, make sure you talk to as many of us as possible and get as most out of this weekend as you can, because this is your time to take it to the next level. This is not to play it safe anymore, as I said earlier. It's to play to win. We're here to win. That's why you're here this weekend, and we're going to show you how to win. But that's in your desire. You have to desire it, though. With that being said, let's welcome up Susan. Everybody give her 2 claps for Susan.
You never saw a cheerleader in a suit, did you?
He must have been a bold.
Yeah, he actually was a Dale Carnegie speaker, too. He actually used to teach Dale Carnegie courses. So, Robert Kiyosaki was one of his mentors, personal mentors. Well, of course, you know, my name is Susan. I come from, I used to be in dentistry, you know, 3 kids and a lot of work, and a farmer's daughter from the middle of no place, Missouri. You know, we grew up poor. We grew up broke. My dad had an entrepreneur mindset and spirit. He did build houses, so I was familiar with that. He was a property developer and had a gas station and a restaurant, and you know, my parents divorced and he got rid of all that and decided to raise us all on a farm, which was a really great way to grow up. But you grow up poor and you learn how to work hard, and when that doesn't work, you work harder, and when that doesn't work, you work harder some more. And what I learned, I didn't learn until I was older, that hard work doesn't get it anymore. Working harder and harder and harder doesn't work in this world. You have to work smart. And my dad cannot walk. He's in his early 70s. Somewhere in mid-60s, he just couldn't walk anymore. It's because he worked so darn hard, he broke his body. But his dad lived to be 100, so guess what? He's going to live a crippled, miserable next 40 years. And wow, that was the big light bulb for me. I had already started investing in I became an investor in 2000. I went to a real estate seminar just like you. And you know, I had paid for some mentors and invested a lot of money to become an investor, and I bought a lot of properties, and I became very successful very quickly. I fired my boss in 18 months, which was awesome. And he's my friend to this day. I call him the jerk that inspired me. And we laugh about that a lot. I inspired him. He actually sold his practice. He realized that if he didn't go to work, he didn't make any money, and it didn't matter how much money you make. If you don't show up, you can't make money. And so when I'm talking about freedom, and I'm going to take a trip, and I don't want to work anymore, and I'm going to fire you if you don't shut up, he's like, what are you doing? You know, every time you come back from one of these real estate seminars, you look like Moses who just came off the mountain, you know. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm glad you asked. And so I shared it with him, and he built his practice up, sold it, and now all he does is travel the world, and he actually cures sick people. He became an inventor, and he's cured cancer. He's cured diabetes, like he's curing people. So that's the gift that we give the world, is the inspiration. Once we give them a freedom path, then we want to share it with everybody once we receive our own. So the rest is history. I'm like Dennis, is very versed in just about every area. Very, 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 very creative. I love to do things creatively. I don't say there is no way to do a deal. There's always a way to do a deal. It's just how creative can you get? And if you aren't used to being creative, I know Gary teaches a lot of great creative techniques, and as much as I think I know, when I'm in Gary's presence, I just go, wow, why didn't I think of that? So we can always learn and always learn more from each one of these guys. Each one of these guys have taught me something, and I know they can share with you. So who has questions that they're dying to get out there, or you're confused about? Anything that you want to just kind of pick our brains, we're happy to share with you. What's up,
On
Johnny?
rehab, I'm going to be screening a bunch of contractors, and it's the first rehab I've done in this area. So, I don't know how many are gonna show up, we contacted 60.
Wow.
In different markets, we've had 30 show up from 60, we've had
Right.
5 show up from 60. I personally know one of them, so the rest of them I have no contact or professional experience with. I'm sure some of them will be, most of them are GCs, some of them, there's one that's more of a general residential service that also contracts with a
Right.
GC. So do you have any tips, pointers, notes on how to choose the right GC and avoid the pitfalls that are probable?
As I talk to people, that's a great question, first of all, and that's probably the hardest if you've never actually, your first rehab, right? Hiring the right contractor. For me, being a contractor for as long as I was, which I'm glad not to be anymore, because you become a bank, not a contractor, right? You're always carrying money. But first and foremost, you've got to vet them that they are financially ready to do your job. So anybody, any contractor who needs money down, next. Okay, if your contractor can't carry you for minimum 2 weeks, your job, I don't care how big your job is, that's not a guy you want to talk to. So you can just ask them, where are you financially, right? My job, this rehab's $50,000, right? What are you looking for? And the minute they say, well, I need 10% down, whatever the amount is, that's not your guy. Okay, so that's first and foremost, because the guys who want money down are gonna nickel and dime you, and every Friday, when they gotta pay their guys, hey, I need money, hey, I need money. And then they're gonna make up change order forms to justify why they wanna charge you more money. So leads to the second thing, your contracts, detail. You're doing X for X. Anything above, you don't do it unless I approve you. You can't come to me saying, I did X, Y, Z, it's another $2,000. What are you talking about? We didn't discuss that. Knowing that, I'll clearly always hire a licensed contractor, but remember, licensed contractors have recourse just as you do, right? If you don't pay a contractor, he could throw a lien on your property. Now, if you hire an unlicensed contractor, where in cases you may want to save a couple of bucks by hiring an unlicensed contractor, what they'll do is they don't have any recourse. You don't have to pay them. They can't do anything, right? They're not licensed. They can't go to the contractors board and say, hey, this guy didn't pay me, I want to put a lien. They can't do that. But you're going to lose money. You can't recoup, right? If they're licensed and bonded, you could recoup it somehow, right? Legally, you're all good. So be careful hiring unlicensed guys. But I know plenty of guys that are unlicensed, that are honest, good people. Most people are honest, good people, want to do you a good job, most of them. But you just got to weed out the bad ones. So unfortunately, contractors get a bad rap, bad name, and they're not all bad. You just got to learn how to vent them. And just make sure that it's always on your terms, not theirs. They'll bring you their contract, say, well, that looks good, but here's my stuff also on top of that.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
That was awesome, right?
Yeah.
Two clap.
Beautiful.
Another question?
More questions, come on.
Come on, guys.
I bet you that just saved you
Oh, here we
thousands
go,
and
Kate.
thousands and thousands of dollars.
Like anything, marketing questions?
Kate's got one.
Kate's got
Hand-
one.
Handwriting the envelope, but what about the actual letter? I feel like
Yes.
that would be.
If you have time to handwrite the actual letter,
Mom does. She loves
Is
it.
she-
Outsourcing.
Outsourcing.
She has
And
great handwriting.
does she?
Yes.
you may want to even teach your hand lettering that way. So people who are practicing, if you know somebody in your area who is a hand letterer and would like to do it just for fun,
Yeah.
I say go for it.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's going to really, your uptick, they may start framing your letters if you get them to hand letter. If you turn it into a work of art, as long as they can accomplish your goal of getting that many 50 of them out, by all means.
I had teenage kids. You know what I asked my daughter? I said, hey, bring about a half a dozen of your friends over.
Yeah.
And I literally paid them a dime per letter.
Yeah.
Right? And they were making a couple of bucks. I wasn't,
Yeah.
I didn't want them to do it. So just find a way to outsource any which way you can. You know, high schoolers, whoever. Stay at home moms, hey, you want to write 25 letters for me?
But how do you even keep track of all of them? Like, do you do it Excel?
Excel
And
spreadsheet.
you just, like,
That's right. And then you just put columns on there
Right.
with dates, mailed, you know, and then the ones that reply, you just make a note, they replied, you take them out of the letter cycle, you put them into your funnel. Well, in real estate, we call it the funnel, but I don't know in
So
investor.
what's the best time to send them out? Like, is there a day of the week that's the best time, the day of the month, or the week of the month that's the best time?
I'd like to send them out towards the beginning of the month. That's when I like to send them out, and I like to send them out early in the week so that they arrive later in the week, so that they have the end of the week for them to kind of digest them over the weekend, because they'll stick it on the table on Saturday morning and it'll stay there all weekend long. That's just me, but.
If I can make a note on the letter campaigns, if you want to do letter campaigns, everybody sends them out once a month. My buddy of mine said, I sent mine out every 2 weeks, and he did, I think 200 initially. On a third letter campaign that went out, he gets a call from a guy, and the guy says, I'm going to make you a deal of a lifetime. And of course, he goes, yeah, I've only heard that for 1,000 times, in the last few weeks. He goes, I have a house that's been appraised for $2 million. It's on the water. I've been living here for the last 30 years. I owe $179,000 on it. He goes, I'll give it to you for $500,000. Here's the catch. I want to live in this house until I die. He goes, I am dying. I have no relatives. I have no friends. I'll be dead within a year. I want $5,000 a month until I pass so I can pay all my bills and get my orders in place. And he goes, and you can have the house. So my friend, who was 71 years old, lost everything previously, wow, how do I do this? So he got with a coach. Coach explained how to do this. He's actually going to take the house, have the lawyers who are drawing up the paperwork to make sure everything's legal. This guy can stay until he passes, and he's going to take $500,000 out as an equity line of credit, so he's going to pay off the guy's mortgage. He's going to actually then put that in a bank account at 10% or whatever. That's $5,000 a month. He'll pay this guy $5,000 a month. And I said, well, of course, I got my little consumer mind went on. I said, well, Ricardo, what if he lives, longer than, a year? He goes, I don't care. It's $2 million. He goes, I'm back to square one. I'm back in the game. First letter campaign when he got back into it. So does this work? Absolutely, but you have to be in the game to do it. If you don't, and he was coachable. They just told him to do it, and his coach said, do it every other week. We'll see how that works. So it does work. So you have to do it. Yes, sir.
You gotta be willing to skydive at night behind enemy lines with a knife in your teeth and no parachute.
Exactly.
Out of the plane.
You know what they call that? You know what they call that, right? That's called faith.
That's right. There you go.
You have to have faith. If you had all the questions answered before you got started, you had no faith. You wouldn't do it anyway. That's one of the things. I'm glad, David and I had this conversation just in the hallway earlier. He has a very technical engineering mind. And I know as coaches, we've all struggled with working with engineers. I got to know everything about everything about everything about everything. And what if there's a hole in the boat and I'm paralysis of analysis, paralysis of analysis, paralysis of analysis is the hardest thing to do. Once you get an engineer on board, they're in. You can't convince them otherwise. But boy, the toughest thing for us as coaches to do is work with very intelligent people because your mind just has this desire to want to know everything about everything, and it just doesn't work that way. You'll never take action because you're constantly stuck in some place in your head where you feel like, oh, I can't do it yet because I don't know everything about it yet. So if any of you feel that resonated with you, come talk to David or myself. I used to have that mindset myself. My son's,
It's a controlling mindset.
It is.
You have to feel like you're in control, because an engineer, if you don't control everything, a bridge falls down and kills people, right? And so people die if you don't engineer things properly and your mind is trained to do things.
I worked on projects that we had to anticipate all the different forces that would go onto something this big prior to it going inside of patients. Because if this thing broke, they could die. They could die. And then we could be, even now, we could be personally held liable. We could be put in prison. They could die, we could go to prison.
But that doesn't work in real estate.
But so I had to change that. I had to unwrap that mindset and realize that when something fails, somebody doesn't die in real estate. You can get sued, but the worst thing that's at stake with real estate isn't really life and death, generally. It's just money. right? And once you start to wrap your head around thinking about money and putting it in its place, one of the things that Gary said early on that really, really stuck with me, that I want to I'll just repeat it, is we don't worship money. We don't let money be our God. We control the money. And by controlling the money, that way we are in control of a large part of our lives. We don't let it run our lives. We don't drive it by fear.
It's a tool.
Yeah, so Kev, you wanna give out, we all have a mutual friend. He talks about how we're trained and taught to hold on to money and, you know, we scoop it up and we pile it up and we're like scared to death to let it go. You guys wanna share his philosophy real quick, Travis, so you get?
Which one? I don't know this one, do I?
Yeah, you do. Right, guys' philosophy about how we.
I don't know that one.
Oh, Evan, you want to share it?
You're talking about,
Yeah.
I know Right Guy, but I don't know that one.
Right guy's philosophy.
Again, it's like this, call money a tool, right? Just like a mechanic who's got a toolbox full of tools. I mean, what good are they if he doesn't use them? They're nice shiny toolbox, like Snap-on tools, Mac tools, like super nice tools. But they're no good. A Ferrari, what good is a Ferrari? If you've never driven a Ferrari, and someone gave you one, odds are you'd crash that thing. So you need to go take a lesson how to learn how to drive a Ferrari, because the first one I drove was like, what is this thing? So the mindset of money and hanging on is just from fear, right? Fear of loss, right? Fear of not getting what I want, and that's just that just comes all the way back from tradition when you were kids and our parents were raised. But we got to remember, our parents and grandparents were all raised in an era of scarcity, right? Great Depression type era stuff, and so they're taught to hang on to everything you have. Well, this is 2018, and I teach my kids that's the opposite. Money's a tool, and use it or you're going to lose it, and then use it correctly. And don't worry if you lose it. There's so much money out there. There's an abundance of money. There's trillions and trillions and trillions on the planet. Your job is just to go get it. Just go get it. So don't worry about what you have and or don't have at this point in time. What you have is great. Sometimes I'll reference my money is like my soldiers, my little army guys that have to go out there and recruit more army guys. Come back, more money. But they can't go recruit if I don't let them go. If I keep them tucked over here, they can't go out there and recruit more money. So. Kiyosaki, what does he say? Savers are losers. Save money. Money can't grow in a bank account, Yeah, it's your emergency fund, all that stuff set up. Every dime after 12 months worth of your expenses that's put away, if it's not working, it's losing. Plain and simple, it's losing. People who sit on 2, 3, 4, 500 grand, and it's not working, you're just letting it sit wherever, you're losing. And as an investor, the mindset of learning how to grow your money double digits, because your retirement accounts, 401ks, all those things are growing at single digits. They're all happy to make 7 or 8% a year. That's a killer year. But as an investor, you better learn how to make double digits, above 20%, which you can, multiple ways. But again, know the rules of the game to learn how to grow your money, but you got to put it out there. You have to put it out there. It's not going to come back. It's not going to come back.
If I can embellish on that, it's kind of when we talked about credit yesterday. I told you all you should have 20 credit cards or 20 lines of something that's out there working for you. It's that algorithm that doesn't work. If you don't put your money out there and put it to work, how can it ever make a rate of return? If you're holding it in and scarcity and all that, he's right. There's a lot of research that, quite frankly, the wealthy know the secrets that you don't know. Now, would you like us to share those secrets with you about how some of those traditional products that we've all been programmed that we have to have in order to retire, they don't work. They're just not working on your behalf anymore. And I know we talked a little bit about financial advisors or, sometimes financial planners or CPAs or whatever. It's not that they don't know how to help you. It's what they're programmed to do. And they don't do it on purpose. I say they don't do it on purpose. Some of them do, but they don't know any better, and they are obligated to give you those products that their company has programmed them to give you. So what is your job? Research? Ask questions? Model someone who has a successful path?
Take action.
Take action? So that's your job, is to go out there and get the truth, find out, okay, well, who really is doing something that's working? They don't have a traditional 401k, IRA, stocks, bonds, CDs. Those things don't work anymore. They were just something that was developed for businesses to offer you as programs. Well, are you sick and tired of being programmed? Have you been programmed enough? How about you program yourself? That's my philosophy. So yeah, he's absolutely right. Single digits, they don't work. And by the way, first time I drove a Ferrari, I did it without an education. And my friend, I burned out the clutch because I didn't know how to shift it right. It was 20 grand to fix the clutch. You can just imagine he didn't let me drive his car the next time until I got a lesson.
You know, those cars are.
Oh, there's something, yeah, you don't, it's not like the normal thing you think it is. And so I got a high quality education and quite the spanking because you burned the clutch. That's 20 grand just for them to look at it. Good thing you got a lot of money. You know? It's fun to have rich friends, but I don't say rich, I say wealthy. Because, you know, you can lose it all. It's right here. The wealth is here. If you don't make wealth here, you'll never keep it here. And that's the big lesson that I like to learn is and like to share is your mindset is, if it's a broke mindset, you'll continue to have broke patterns and broke habits and broke friends. So that's what we're here to help you change. I hope that made a difference.
So I like to say, so what do the wealthy do? I mean, yeah, we always talk about what do the wealthy do, but I wasn't wealthy, so no one ever told me what the wealthy do. So do bankers want you rich or brokers want you rich? Yes or no?
No.
No. And so if you throw, let's say, 10 grand in a bank, how much do they give you? 0.5%? Percent? Let's just say it's a percent. Let's say it's 1% just for, we'll make them look good. It's a percent. How long does it take you? It's a question I'd ask myself. I wish I'd known this when I was 18. How long does it take you to double your money? 10 times? Well, at 1%, there's something, a rule of 72, divides, so it takes you 72 years to go from 10,000 to 20,000. And what do the banks do? They take your $10,000 and do what with it? They loan it up for how much? 10, 20, 30, sometimes even more with hidden fees in there. So let's say they, loan it out to somebody for 30%. How long does it take them to double their money? 2.5 years. A little less than 2.5 years. So they doubled their money. Now I always ask the question, well, if the minimum I need, according to the experts out there, is $2.5 million when I retire and my house paid off, how am I going to get there? Well, I need to get a higher rate of return, and how do I get a higher rate of return? And how many times do I have to double it to get my minimum of $2.5 million? Well, if you actually do the math on that, it's about 10 times. Double your money 10 times. So they're going to make, with 30% every 2.5 years, in 10 years, they got their $2.5 million. And they've given you less than $1,000. Is that a good deal? So how do I take this to the next level? How do I, double my money quicker by getting higher rates of return through real estate? That's what Gary's here to teach you, is get a higher rate of return quicker so you can double your money faster so you can get to that goal in a realistic manner, a safe manner. That's why you guys are here, is to answer those questions so that makes it happen. Does that make sense? So I always tell people, we got to know what the rich are doing. It's not the fact that, they're just lucky or whatever. They know the rules and they follow the rules. So now that you got a taste on that, when you go to the next level, Gary's going to show you how to do that in a safe, secure manner. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes. You got 2 questions over here.
I got 2 questions. Let's go with Bill.
Yes. I agree with what you're saying. I hear you. I'm one of those guys that, hard to let go of money if I have it. Well, the question I have relates to the economy and the debt crisis that's like a cloud hovering over us at this moment in our history. What do we do to alleviate, or as best we can, what we really know is quite imminent? That the debt crisis.
Beautiful question.
Yeah, well, we probably all, you just opened up a can of worms with that question.
No.
We all, we're all like,
we're on it. I have faith in God, I have faith in me, and I have faith in you guys and what you're saying.
And you have faith in our government, right?
I do not have faith in the dollar. I do not have faith in the debt that our government has.
9 scariest words in the English language, according to Ronald Reagan.
We are in your government.
I am the government, yes, and I'm here to help you.
And there's,
What's your statement?
So I had a gentleman, I think it was last week or the week before, who lost $1 million in a transaction, didn't know what he was doing. So for the last 10 years, since 2008, he had $1 million in a bank account.
All right.
It's been there for a year, and he goes, well, at least I didn't lose it. Well, wait a second. He was going backwards and didn't even realize he was going backwards. He was so scared to do anything. He did nothing. The million was there, but I thought about, well, at 10%, because they always say inflation is 6 or 7%, it's probably more like 10 or 12% in reality. How much value did he lose in the last 10 years? So he probably went from in buying power, $1 million back down to $500,000 just by letting it sit there. But he was happy, he was holding on to it. You can't hold on to it. You got to put in the assets that are going to generate you more money. So whatever you're doing has to generate you more than you would if you put it in a bank account, or more because you want to double your money, but you have to have a plan to do that.
yeah. Isn't that really what Gary's doing? He's teaching you how to put it into income-generating assets that are gonna provide residual cash flow. Isn't residual income without your hard-earned work, your hard body work, isn't that really where you wanna be? Residual, protected, something that's safe, something that, what is a commodity that we all need?
Place to live, food to eat,
Food
shelter.
to eat, and shelter, that's pretty much it. It's a commodity, it's something that we all have to have, even when the government falls apart, even when the world falls apart, we still all need a place to live and something to eat. So those that provide housing, we're gonna be a commodity that everyone's going to be looking to have. And that's why Gary is teaching you how to get these multi-unit buildings and how to put together a portfolio that's kind of a bit recession-proof, to say the least, really. There's ways to do it, and yes, I know there's